It's 20 past 10, but you're just in time for a good episode of Press Pass. I guarantee you that. This is what's coming up.
Though media narratives rally our resolve as they should, our actions will not be based on condemnation before one has been heard.
A lot of anticipation before the State of the Nation address. Was there a bit more hype than was necessary or just an underwhelming delivery?
Ili gazeti uze lazima muweke headline jina ya Ruto. Hiyo ni sawa basi tukubaliane. Lakini sasa siku ile dividend zikifika tafadhali msinisahau.
Taking to social media, Nganga hit out at the media for what he called
Why always me? You know how Kenyans say it. Why always me? And that's what the deputy president and this controversial preacher Nganga is saying. Why them always in the news? We will have some answers.
Hawa watu wa media ni kama sasa ni kuharibu kwa sababu kila wakati Ruto.
Kwa maoni yangu inaona kwamba inamchangia, inampea mileage.
Well, so is DP Ruto being unfairly targeted by the press with the headlines? This is what a small section of Kenyans had to say. You will hear that in a moment. Well, let's get to it and meet our panelists tonight. I have, and very pleased to have Eric Odwor. He is the Kenya Union of Journalists Secretary General, as well as next to him is Philip Itale. He has been here a number of times, actually has worked here at Nation Media Group as a journalist. Believe it or not, maybe you haven't seen him or his work as a journalist, but now he is the communications director for ODM. And next to him is Macharia Gaido. He is a veteran journalist and, of course, a very good contributor here, and we appreciate your presence. The Association of Media Women in Kenya were willing to have someone come and represent them here, but they were not available given the notice, and we apologize for not having that representation. But straight to it, and yes, this is what the president had to say. A part of it, of what Kenyans were expecting. They wanted blood, they wanted to see heads roll, but the president didn't quite give the names that people were expecting. Was it a making of the media, this whole build-up to the State of the Nation address? This is part of what he had to say.
Honorable members, I must say that I've been under pressure that who am I sucking? But I must, however, caution that the pursuit of the corrupt will be undertaken strictly within the remits of the law. It will not be done through vigilante justice and pitchfork protest. Though media narratives rally our resolve as they should, our actions will not be based on condemnation before one has been heard.
Gentlemen, let's get a reaction to this, and Philip is taking quite a few notes. Yes, I'll get your reaction first of all, the coverage of the State of the Nation address and what the president said.
Well, sorry, I didn't get to follow the president's State of the Nation address live because I was in Ugenya during the campaigns. It was the last day to the by-election. But
apologies for the loss, but
later on YouTube, I took time to listen to the president's speech at night, the whole of it, and I would say what the media expected and the whole nation is not what the president delivered on that day. Because the president has been talking about the fight against corruption, that I'm going to take action, that I'm not going to tolerate corruption, I'm not going to tolerate anybody in my government getting involved in corrupt practices. And that's the same thing he said. What Kenyans expected, you know, the State of the Nation address is not something that you can joke about with. It's something that is taken serious by, in civilized democracies like in the US.
Right.
Such address is waited for by millions and millions of citizens of that particular country.
As this one was.
Even in Tanzania, people take it so serious. But you know, in Kenya, you know, when I was listening to the president, in some instances, I could see him giggling, trying to laugh, you know. You don't laugh at a matter that is so serious and so dear to the hearts of Kenyans like corruption.
Okay.
You know, the economy is not good because of corruption. People are suffering because of corruption. A lot of money has been lost. No project has been implemented because of corruption. And then you keep on issuing threats and threats. You know, what the media expected, because on that particular day, I'm pretty sure journalists were credited to go to Parliament expecting a bombshell, an implosion from the president, that today I'm making this decision. I want this CSS to step aside within the next 24 hours because of these allegations that have been leveled against them in their particular ministries.
Okay, it's funny though what you say, Philip, because the head of the ODM party that you work with and for, he said this was quite a balanced speech that was delivered by the president, and keeps supporting the president in the fight against graft. Macharia, from your perspective, was there a build-up or an expectation that was given to people, a misplaced expectation by media? Was it our doing?
Obviously, there was very high expectation that something very serious would be done on that day.
Yes.
But I think it is absolutely dishonest for the president to blame the media. That is looking for the usual scapegoats. The thing is, the media was operating very much on leaks and information coming from very high up in his government. And all that hype about pending dismissals was coming from people very high up in his government. Now, if we are guilty of something, it is not in building up those expectations.
Right.
But it is allowing ourselves to be misused as part of the propaganda coming from State House about the war on corruption. Because the more we go, the more we say that it is actually more bark than bite.
Yes.
Every day we've been seeing the president issuing warnings, threats. It would not be against the law for the president to sack a minister. He does not need any legal advice to do that.
Yes.
He can just do it. In your house, if you find some sugar is consistently missing, or some salt, or your ties have gone missing, you don't need you cannot say that you will operate within the law. You sack the first suspect.
Right. And this is interesting.
Another thing I'll say, and this is where I think we are failing, we are not properly interrogating the seriousness of that war on corruption. When the president says he is serious, is he really serious? When we are told there will be action, is there actually action, or are we just running on the spot?
Right.
Almost every day we are seeing headlines about incontrovertible evidence. People are about to be arrested. People are about to be charged with theft of 8 billion, 10 billion, 20 billion, 30 billion. Most of the times, the hype does not add up. When there are arrests and prosecutions, we have been told about 8 billion or 20 billion or 400 million. So some things are not adding up.
Yes.
We're being told of rock-solid evidence. When people go to court, the evidence presented is so weak that you even wonder what was the DCI doing all along.
Right.
That information, a lot of it, which the media is being fed with, and which we are unthinkingly regurgitating, is coming from the DCI or the DPP or both together. I don't know, but from those offices, it is not. We are being used to sell those narratives of a very serious war on corruption. Yet when matters end up in court, we don't see that seriousness.
So how do we deal with this with hindsight of the pattern that Macharia is drawing? Because he feels that we are being used to be part of, a playwright or, an orchestrated event, a string of events. And in this case, we look like we are just there to be used to pass on. And even the president said, though the media narratives rally our resolve as they should, our actions will not be based on condemnation before one has been heard. Are we really being part of this?
I don't think so, because I think the media and the journalists actually, they just play their role. Number one, to set the agenda, because the media has got agenda setting role. And therefore, at the moment, people are talking about corruption. And the media actually is working with the public in terms of having this debate and also expressing the frustrations of Kenyans as far as the against corruption is concerned. Let me tell you, for example, if you are a president and 3 or 4 of your cabinet secretaries spend a whole day recording statement at DCI, definitely there is something wrong. How do you allow that to happen? Then after recording a statement with the DCI the whole day, then these people again go back to the office to start working. If they were supposed to provide any evidence, or if DCI was looking for any evidence, and these people are still in office, and we know the amount of influence these cabinet secretaries have, and they are still going to operate from the offices where they are being investigated, definitely they'll have to interfere with the evidence. So what we are saying that is the president himself actually who is supposed to set the threshold for his cabinet, whereby if you are mentioned and you are being investigated as far as corruption investigations are concerned, you should be asked to step aside. If you are cleared, then you come back to the office. But you can't be a president who is sitting and chairing a cabinet meeting, then in the middle of a cabinet meeting, probably a CS receives a message from DCI that, excuse me, sir, once you are done with the cabinet meeting, please come to Kiambu Road to record a statement. Definitely, there's something wrong with that cabinet.
You mentioned setting the agenda, but is the agenda being set up for us?
No. There's no one who is setting the agenda for us, because in media in setting agenda and the media in doing their job, they definitely have to work with some actors in any process. Okay. So in this case, the media in setting the agenda, they work with the DCI, they work with the police, they work with the DPP and the judiciary in terms of getting this information, because the media actually does not have this information. This information must be gotten somewhere, and this information actually comes from this office.
But there's need to be keen.
Yes, so what we need to do as journalists, actually what we need, like Mashari has said, we need to interrogate. If you are given a report or a file by DPP or DCI or any actor that is involved in the process, then we are supposed to interrogate those files, interrogate that information, just to ensure that by the time you are giving this information to the public, is an information that has been verified and information that is not actually being given out for the purposes of influencing an opinion or for the purposes of fighting a specific war.
Now, we got a lot of heat, I'm talking about we being NTV, for a tag that was given to this particular story and the state of the nation, and in part about war and corruption. And there's this tag that we used, and if you can see it, if you can look at it from what I'm looking at to my director, war on corruption, has the President Uhuru become threatener in chief? And phone calls came through and questions were raised as to whether we were being disrespectful. In your view, is threatener in chief any disrespect?
Mark, look at it this way. Right now, if Uhuru was to address a press conference tomorrow, there are specific lines you expect from that statement, like no turning back. We are taking the war against corruption very seriously. We are going to act. We are going to take action. So actually, if you were to go through President Uhuru's statements, or press releases, or even the State of the Nation address as it was, there are specific lines. You will always find them, or maybe it's a template that is given by his handlers or by his speech writers. But there are specific lines that are usually just issuing threats, and you'll get them in every statement that is read by President.
So in this case, would you feel this was a bit too tough?
It was entirely accurate, I think, and it was entirely accurate. I don't think it was unfair on him. He has become the chief threatener, but out of those threats, we're not seeing any real action.
Okay. And with the case now, the story being, we are going to follow the rule of law in pursuing the corrupt.
Now, this is what I find interesting.
Yes.
The president referred to his 2015 State of the Nation address, after which he required some 5 cabinet secretaries to step aside. At the time he required those people to step aside, they had not been charged. Kibaki did the same over the Anglo leasing and Goldenberg things.
Yes.
At the time he required the cabinet secretaries mentioned adversely to step aside. They had not been charged. Why is Uhuru shifting the red line this time around? He has drawn a red line in the sand against corruption. Why is he shifting the line this time that we will only ask them to step aside after they are charged?
Okay. And do you buy that, the issue of following the rule of law in pursuit of those who are corrupt in this particular new narrative?
As my senior here said, in the 2015 State of the Nation address, the president was very tough on corrupt officials in his government, his administration.
Yes.
Those were, I think, 2 years to election. Perhaps he was trying to hoodwink the public into believing that he is serious about the war on corruption and perhaps to get the second term, which he did. But now, there's something that I'm trying to learn from the president. I think he knows that he's not seeking
re-election
in 2022. But, as a citizen, I'm obliged to question the president. Why is he backtracking on his earlier promise that he is serious about the fight on corruption? In mature democracies, a president who is serving the second term becomes lame duck so easily when they refuse to act and listen to the plight of the people. Like, I'm trying to believe what the Honorable Musalia Mudavadi said the other day after the State of the Nation address, that the time to fight corruption for the president, if he really wants to achieve his Big Four agenda, is now. Because between 2021 and 2022, people will be thinking about their next leader. They will no longer listen to him. And people will start saying, "What, you had the opportunity to do this."
Yes.
My advice to the president, let him not continue, sorry to use this word, let him not be a barking dog. Barking dog in the village, you will bark at someone, then it backs off, it retreats.
Yeah.
When that
it's funny what you say about Mudavadi, but also it was quite something to see Raila Odinga, straight after Kennedy Mureithi asked him the reaction to this particular speech, and he said many Kenyans were disappointed, and he asked Kennedy Mureithi, which Kenyans are you talking about? And he seemed contented with this delivery.
I watched that clip.
Yes.
I watched it on news, and what the Honorable Raila Odinga said, it's not the president to suck in his speech to the nation, because according to him, he believes that these institutions that are charged with the responsibility of taking action against the corrupt officials. The DCI has been interrogating ministers for hours. There's a minister who was interrogated for 3 days with 300 questions. Why hasn't he been taken to court? What happened to the aftermath of that particular interrogation?
Macharia, do you find it strange? Because you're not answering the question, the reaction.
Yes, obviously Atala will bring a specific spin.
Yes.
Musalia was absolutely right that the president should go beyond backing. Raila is taken as the leader of the opposition,
right,
by virtue of his position. Let's call him runner-up in the elections and so on and so forth. He has become a cheerleader for the president even when the president is wrong. So there is a big vacuum there. We were seeing Raila as one of the fiercest proponents of a war against corruption. But now when a lot of people are thinking that we don't have the resolve to fight the corruption, or that the president does not have the resolve to go all the way, instead of Raila pushing the president to go all the way, he has simply standing on the sidelines and cheering him.
Right.
I think if he wants to remain the leader of the opposition, instead of a cheerleader, then he must do a lot more. Whether it is on corruption, he was a very strong voice against, for instance, against the Eurobond. Now we hear another Eurobond is coming. Silence on Raila's part.
Right.
Yes, I agree with the Macharia that in the absence of the opposition, there are so many things that are likely to happen and nobody actually will interrogate them. And actually that's why you can see the deputy president and the president have got problems with the media, because definitely the media is asking these difficult questions, and the media is actually bringing out what is happening in the government, the public, for the public to know. So if you have the leader of opposition, because Raila Odinga is the leader of opposition by virtue of being the runners-up, and also by the number of members of parliament that actually are ODM members of parliament. So definitely makes ODM the official opposition. But if you have a situation whereby official opposition agrees with the statement that has been issued by the head of state during the State of Nation address, then it means there is some void there that needs to be filled up by other actors. And that's where the media must be very vibrant, and even other civil society must also be vibrant and also interrogate the statement, so that the president does not just go to parliament to fulfill the requirement of the constitution to give that State of the Nation address, other than addressing the real issues that are actually affecting the nation and providing solutions to this. But what the president did, the president went there to mention them, and after mentioning them, actually there is nothing that actually he said as far as addressing them is concerned.
Right. To that issue, first of all, of Raila becoming a cheerleader.
I wanted to say this. You know, the Honorable Raila has been very consistent on the issue, on the war against corruption. Very consistent. And everywhere he goes, in every forum he attends, he has always been very consistent on this particular issue. He has always urged the president and the institutions that are charged with the responsibility of fighting corruption not to relent in that war against corruption. He has always been very consistent, and I can defend him anywhere on this particular issue.
It's your job to do so.
Because I know,
yes,
even in forums where the president, he has jointly addressed with the president, he has always addressed him and told him, Your Excellency, the war on corruption is part of the deal that we had on the 9th of March 2018 during the handshake. Actually, that was one of the deals that they agreed, that we must join hands to fight this vice. It's killing Kenya. A few people cannot just be enriching themselves and impoverishing millions of Kenyans without thinking about the future of this country.
All right.
That's the war on corruption must be fought anywhere and by everyone who feels
and this conversation doesn't end in terms of the corruption and even the State of the Nation address, because as Shadrach points out, the president's speech, he says, was suggestive that maybe some goose was being prepared for cooking this week. Perhaps that's something we're probably going ahead of ourselves here. Maybe there's something that's coming up, because he left it hanging and said that if you are charged, then you will be action will be taken against you. But we'll see. We're not prophets. We'll see what happens then. But also, Patrick Gadara says to you, your good friend Macharia. Finally, Macharia Gaido says Kenyan media are unthinkingly regurgitating what they are being told. No interrogation, no verification, no contextualization. Basically, no journalism. I don't believe that's verbatim what you said, but he tries to capture the views, and you could probably respond to that when we come back. Does the Deputy President deserve some dividends from the headlining profits that we're getting? We'll listen to that and much more when we come back.
Pia hata waandishi wa habari wawachane na hadithi gushi na wachane na fake news. Si namna hiyo, waandike mambo ya ukweli. Mimi ndio deputy president wa taifa la Kenya. Jana nilikuwa na vice president wa nchi ingine. So waandike ukweli, wawache hii porojo kidogo kidogo hii. Lakini nimeambiwa na hawa watu wa magazeti ati sio makosa yao. Ati ili gazeti iuze lazima uweke jina ya Ruto hapo headline ndio gazeti iuze. Sasa mimi nauliza nyinyi my friends, kama hiyo ndio maneno kwamba ati ili gazeti iuze lazima muweke headline jina ya Ruto, hiyo ni sawa, basi tukubaliane. Lakini pia niwaulize, kama hiyo ndio story, sasa inaonekana mimi na nyinyi tunasaidiana kuuza gazeti. Lakini sasa siku ile dividends ikifika, tafadhali msinisahau. Tugawane, kwa sababu sasa inaonekana hii gazeti lazima tuuze pamoja.
And these are just samples of some of the headlines that have been, wasn't in consistent days like simultaneous, but yes, it has been over time. This is just a sample from Daily Nation on how he's featured in the headlining of stories. Macharia, could he be onto something there in terms of the profits that are being made based on his name? You've been in the business of headlining.
Maybe he's onto something, and maybe he deserves some dividends. But I would think if he's to earn any dividends, I understand he has some interest in some media houses, outfits.
Yes.
So I think he can get his dividends from there. But the thing is this, Mr. Ruto creates his own headlines. They're not created by Nation or Standard or Royal Media or anybody else. When the Deputy President of the Republic is in church on Sunday or whatever day of the week, at some public rally everywhere, tangering, abusing, exchanging words with the lowly civil servants like the DCI, he will make headlines.
Yes.
And he loves those headlines. I think Ruto comes from the school of the school which believes that as long as you're in the headlines, whether they're positive or they're negative, that is good for a politician.
Yes.
So he shouldn't be complaining. Actually, I think he should be very happy.
Publicity is publicity.
Publicity is publicity.
Whether good or bad, it's playing to his. As Itali writes, your response to this, first of all, Eric. I mean, do we deliberately just use him to get the ratings or the revenue, or is it us following the news?
I don't think so. I don't think so, because if you look at the history of newspapers here in this country, we know the people who actually probably could drive the agenda of selling newspapers, but that does not actually help us in making decisions on what comes to the headline. And sometimes Ruto, like Senior Macharia said, put himself in the headline. For example, if people are complaining about the dams story, then Ruto comes out and tells us, no, the dams, actually the amount of money being discussed here, actually 7 billion, not what you guys have written in the newspaper. Definitely, he has explained something that the newspapers will have an interest in to tell Kenyans that the Ruto has said that the money that was lost, that there was no money that was lost, but however, the money that is being talked about here is 7 billion. So definitely, he has put himself on the headline. If something is being discussed, but then he comes out, like for example, like the drought in Turkana. When the media came out and went to Turkana and realized that there is a problem there, people are actually dying because of lack of food, Ruto came out definitely to say that there is nothing like that. That is just fake news. So definitely he has placed himself on the headline.
So he's being very strategic about
it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it doesn't mean that actually journalists are actually manufacturing these stories to put Ruto headline there deliberately. It's Ruto actually who comes out with the stories that actually puts him there.
Plus he works, I mean, the people who work.
And there's something I can add here.
Yeah.
Right now, a lot of the narratives are around corruption. Nowhere has the deputy president been mentioned by the DPP or the DCI as a person of interest.
But there's allies of Ruto.
Out of the blues, he goes to public and says, it's me thereafter, without any prompting. Okay, it's me thereafter.
Right.
On the dams, he went and said, it's us, our people, they are finishing. They want to hit the pastoralist community. Now, this is not some Kajara somewhere or an MCA. This is the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. We can assume that when he comes out and starts fighting those who are fighting corruption, he is actually fighting an initiative of the government in which he is number 2. He's going to make headlines because of that, without a doubt.
Right. And even if you look at even some of the stories, when these allies are mentioned in a story, these allies actually come out and mention his name.
They're the ones who mention his name.
Who mention his name, that these people are after Deputy President William Ruto. They want to stop him so that he does not become the president in 2022. So definitely the media does not create these stories. These stories are created by his allies and himself.
But let's be honest, he also has in his strategic team people who've worked in newsrooms and know how we think and pick up on news stories. And that's probably something we need to be
even
careful.
Before Italy says that, we've seen even in situations whereby the people who are actually handling his communication have even made blunders and some mistakes that even they end up even actually pulling down from social media.
Right.
So definitely he maybe should be blaming his handlers, people who are handling his strategic communication team. Those are the people probably who are advising him to be on the headline even for the wrong reason.
Undue attention that we give the DP, in your view?
You know, I want to say this about the DP. He's one man who likes attention, and also he's one man who likes hitting headlines. For instance, a small thing can be said by one of his right-hand men, Kandaya Mokos, out there.
Yes.
Then the following day, he comes out to amplify that particular issue. Like the issue of, the DCI. It was started by these, the KYMs of his mouth broadcasters. It was started by them that the DCI is targeting our man, is targeting the DCI and the DPP have been positioned here to stop our man from becoming president. Then he goes to a public function as a principal assistant to the president and starts attacking these particular officers of government. And you know, he has the powers as a deputy president to summon these individuals to his office and ask them, what is it you are doing? As a deputy president, I find him to be one man who likes this. And you remember there's a day, one of his communication officers called a journalist and threatened that journalist.
Yes.
When a narrative that person brought out did not sync with what they expected. He called that particular journalist, threatened him, shouted at him. It's not once, not twice. He has done that to several journalists. And, you know, they always want a particular narrative to come out. And that narrative, I would say, is about, especially when something is said about his supposed to be opponents or purported opponents. You know, in their imagination, they believe that anybody who says anything about corruption is an opponent in 2022. No. You know, like corruption, the issue of corruption, like Mr. Macharia said, the DP has not been mentioned anywhere. Nobody has mentioned him as a person of interest in any particular corruption scandal. But, you know, all of a sudden, you find these people coming out. Maybe it's a pattern. They meet somewhere, they discuss. This is go and ignite this. Then, after 2 days, I'll come and amplify it and make it a big thing and will hit headlines.
With this in mind, and really quick so we can move on to the other narrative that's being controlled. There are many narratives around the politics, and that is on ODM. You'll tell us more about that. Macharia, as an editor who has sat in newsrooms to come up with headlines, do you advise that we step back now, knowing the patterns and the tricks that they play, the strategy that they use, to be a bit more careful in easily putting him on the headline?
For me, it would not be so much about Ruto.
Okay.
But about our everyday operations.
Okay.
That we forever have to scrutinize ourselves. And that is why at every editorial meeting in the morning, there is a post-mortem. What did we do last night? What did we do yesterday? What did we do right? What did we do wrong? And within that post-mortem, you can look at your performance over the last 2 or 3 months. What were our headlines? Were they accurate? Do they represent a fair picture? You know, that should be a constant process, not just about Ruto or Raila or politics in general. And I think these processes do go on. And sometimes you look at some titles and you'll notice that of late, maybe they've toned down on politics and are moving more towards human interest stories and so on and so forth. Or others are started off as focusing on features, but now they're moving into politics. They will make their decisions because, first of all, not all the papers are the same. Yes. And that is why even within this stable, the Daily Nation will always be very different from the Business Daily because each has its audience and its priorities. Yes. But there is no harm in forever reviewing, doing your own postmortems, doing your analysis, and seeing where it is that you need to adjust, seeing if you may have been doing something wrong, or seeing, you know, that's a given process.
Let's see a section of and we'll respond to this really quick and then move on to the ODM issue. Section of people that we asked, and this was in Elgeyo Marakwet and Eldoret, I believe, is what my producer told me. We asked, are we unfairly targeting DP Ruto? This is what they had to say.
Hawa watu wa media ni kama sasa ni kuharibu kwa sababu kila wakati Ruto, hakuna kitu hata kwa magazeti ama hata kwa social media siku hizi, kila kitu ni Ruto, kila kitu ni DP Ruto.
Kila wakati mnapoweka chini ya Deputy President Dr. William Ruto, badala ya kuweka kama juzi tumekuwa na issue ya huduma namba, badala ya kuwaambia watu umuhimu ya huduma namba, kila wakati hata nilikuwa naona jana bwana Atuole anasema ya kwamba tunataka Deputy President atuambie atangaze msimamo yake. Badala ya kusema ya kwamba umuhimu ya huduma center ni nini, mnaanza kukimbilia Deputy President.
Na kwa hii mswada yenye wanasema hii kuonekana kwa DP kila wakati kwa media, front lines, kwa headlines ya Nation, Daily Standard na hii zingine, kwa maoni yangu inaona kwamba inamchangia, inampea mileage. Na sisi kama vijana, hata sisi tumeomba wakati tuone kwamba tunaweza pataje, tuone jinsi ya kusaidia yeye.
Kwangu hakuna shida hapo. Wacha watu wa media waendelee kumweka Deputy President katika headlines, kwa sababu hata ukitaka kuuza kitu lazima uweke kwa gazeti. Haitampatia kazi ngumu Deputy President wakati atakuwa akifanya siasa yake 2022 ikifika wakati huo atafanya siasa yake vizuri na hakuna vile atajieleza kwa watu, kwa sababu tayari watu wa media watakuwa wamemuuza.
Miti isiyokuwa na matunda hailingwi. Kumaanisha hii miti ambayo kila mtu amemlinga Ruto kila mahali ni matunda hapo naye mazuri. So it is okay. Kama mumeona is the only one, mnaweza mchambua asubuhi, jioni, usiku, mapema, haina shida. According to us, sisi watu wa Uasin Gishu tuko sawa. Tunajua Ruto ni leader wetu, hatuna mwingine. And he is going to be our president.
Mkiweka Deputy President kama headline, nashangaa na nyinyi media is he the only person who can be put there? But if you feel he's the only person in this country, mwenye mnaweza mumweke kwa ajili, you are making him very popular. Yeah. And we feel good as the residents of Uasin Gishu. Because we know Deputy President has done nothing. He's a good person. He's a person that is a role model for this country, and we really appreciate for putting him in all the headlines. We feel good seeing him every day. When I open the newspaper, I see him, I feel good.
It's easy to laugh about that, but something to look at as practitioners.
Yes.
Really quick, and then we take it.
Yes, I know. If you look at those, if you review the sentiments that have been made by those people, actually is worrying that people do not get to understand the meaning of a headline. Because if you look at those headlines, they will not just write those headlines for the purposes of writing them, but I think there's a message that we are trying to pass across through a specific headline. For example, if a headline of a story whereby Ruto said that no Kenyan actually has died of hunger, definitely that's a story that we are trying to tell the public that this is your government that actually is denying that people are dying, yet people actually are suffering.
Okay.
So definitely that's not a story that somebody will be proud of if that person actually wants to be a leader of this country, because this is a person who wants to be a leader of this country but is in denial that we have issues, we have problems.
Okay.
So some of these headlines must be understood in the context and in the meaning that actually they are intended to put across to the members of the public.
But that thing of making him bigger than, you know, we need to make him in that case with all the coverage.
Yeah, you see, like for them, when they read Ruto in the headline, I think to them that is enough.
They get
but
excited.
They get excited because the name Ruto is in the headline, but they don't understand the meaning of that. Because the media, for us, we've got a duty to the public to tell the public that this is the man who will be coming to ask for your vote to become the president of this republic. So this is a person that we must scrutinize and tell the public the stories about him, so that the public will be able to make informed choice without making choice without knowing a man whom they are going to vote for or who will be going there to ask for their vote. So definitely must tell the people who is this man, William Ruto.
Charles Karis says it's William Ruto is a sarcastic politician. He's everywhere, every time, to indoctrinate and create news and conversation, Moi style. The media and Kieleweke team are playing into his political game plan. I want to get your reactions, Mashari and then Philip Itali, then we take a break.
Yeah, I think that's supposed to have been said. The man loves headlines, whether negative or positive. And as you can see from the Vox Pops we did there, even if it's, you can't call that a scientific
no, definitely not. That's Ugenya Marakwet.
But his supporters see no problem with his being in the headlines all the time, whether it's negative or positive. And I'm no longer in the newsroom, but you can see sometimes that Ruto's problem is not that he gets too many headlines, but that he doesn't get enough.
Really?
There's a subtle game being played within the president's strategic communications unit, where there will be certain clips and pictures of where the deputy president is in a function with the president and all the other people. And the clips and pictures which go out, he has been hidden, deleted, you know. And his people are always furious about that. So they have taken to social media, the social media warriors who used to campaign for Jubilee and are now very active, making sure that those pictures go out on Facebook, Twitter, wherever. And
visibility.
Of course, visibility, to make sure that he is seen and not cropped out.
Philip, real quick, and then we take a break and come back with ODM.
I've watched the Vox Pop, and as a person who has been in the newsroom before, I would say that's very good. It's very positive. And on the other side, I would say the media likes something that is spectacle. And that's why they give the DP a lot of headlines, so that perhaps his people, like I've seen in that Vox Pop, can be excited about it. You know, they are very happy seeing their man on newspaper headlines every day. But I will say this to these particular citizens of this country, that, you know, the media can build or destroy you. You can hit the headlines for all the good reasons, or you can hit the headlines for all the wrong reasons.
Let me end you at that, on this point, because I want you to speak a lot about also something that's been in the headlines, and that is the by-elections on Friday where ODM candidates lost. And there was a lot of reaction to how this was coined in the reportage. We'll be back shortly. Stay with us. Welcome back. The leader of ODM party, Raila Odinga, says the defeat of two party candidates in Ugenya and Embakasi South by-elections is not as big a deal as is being reported by media. In Ugenya, David Ochieng of the Movement of Development and Growth Party felled the popular Orange Party's Christopher Karani, and in Embakasi South by-elections, Wiper candidate Julius Mawathe beat ODM's Irshad Sumra. Here's part of what Raila had to say earlier.
People may be commenting here and there, and that's their democratic rights. Elections are won or lost. So the fact that somebody has lost an election is not a big deal. It's not a big issue.
Yep, that's what he had to say. Is this a control? Because he says, actually, in Embakasi South, this was a case of NASA against NASA. So why the big fuss about this particular issue, Macharia?
Obviously, he is trying to make the best of a bad situation. The fact of the matter is that ODM lost 2 seats where it was really expected to win. And ODM also played a part in the background narrative that those contests are a case of Raila versus Ruto. Of course, Ruto also played up that game, and that is why now his people are so excited. So he cannot really now start blaming the media, because that narrative was created by his own people about the importance of those seats and that narrative of Raila versus Ruto.
Right. And you tweeted, I think this was on Sunday, I'm just trying to see that because your page right now is a bit flooded with what you've been saying here, but you said, tuache kudanganyana, media. That's Philip Itali. I'm talking about your post, and I believe this was on Sunday, and you said you would want people to be clear and honest in this particular case. I mean, you look at the headlines. Citizen, Digital. Hustler Nation has spoken. Ruto says on Mawathe Ochieng win, if my director would be able to show this. And another one, this is the Standard. Raila's party headache after embarrassing loss in by-elections. And then the Star, MP Nyamako taunts ODM over loss. And this is Sunday Nation. Raila's ODM party at a crossroads after election loss. Your view, you feel that we are not telling the truth?
You know, as one of the citizens in that Vox Pop said, "Mti mzuri ndio urushiwa mawe," and I would say na haukosi matunda. You know, ODM is not just a small party. ODM is not.
That's why the loss is a big deal.
Well, let me come to that.
Okay.
I'm trying to qualify what I want to say.
Okay.
ODM is not a small party, and expectations were very high, especially in Ugenya and Embakasi.
Yes.
Embakasi South. But it has to be noted that Embakasi South has so many dynamics in terms of voters, the electorate there, and as the Honorable Raila said, it was a battle between NASA and NASA. You know, that was a friendly battle, a brotherly battle. But you know, in Ugenya, what annoyed me in particular is when one of the media houses said Raila's ODM loses a seat for the first time in Siaya County. That's not the truth. Actually, in 2013 general election, Alego Songa was won by a Wiper MP called Mulwan Omondi. He won it. And out of the 6 ward seats in that particular constituency, ODM only managed 2. So it's not the first time we are losing in Siaya. And I don't know why they single out Siaya County, because ODM has lost several seats in Kisumu County. We lost. We didn't win the Kisumu West. We didn't win the Kisumu
Perhaps
East.
it's how Senator Orengo, who is top in the leadership of ODM, actually actively campaigned.
Well, every party has to campaign for their candidate.
Within your backyard, supposedly, and you lose. That's a big deal.
You couldn't have expected us to just sit back and wait for the electorate to just decide on whom to vote for. In fact, 14,000 votes is not, that's a reasonable number.
Okay.
But you know, as we say, elections are there to be won or to be lost. And that's democracy. What the people of Ugenya did was pure democracy. They said, we support the ideologies of the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. We believe in him. But on this particular one, let's have this particular person to represent us in Parliament. Mm-hmm. Perhaps based on his previous track record when he was a member of Parliament for that particular constituency. And Maki was a member of ODM in that particular, in the 11th Parliament. Then he opted out and went to another party. So that's democracy, and we accepted it. Nobody has complained about it. But as the Honorable Junet said, we have learnt a lesson. We as a party, we have learned a lot of lessons here in these particular by-elections. Okay. And we're going perhaps to sit down and re-strategize perhaps how to handle next elections.
I like how you use perhaps in that sentence twice. But Dennis Itumbi, who's your equal, just real quick so that he can respond to this. He tweets, it was absolutely refreshing to hear Raila Odinga say losing elections is not a big deal. It should never be. One of the moments when he endorses IEBC and elections. Will he say something different of IEBC tomorrow?
You expect that from Dennis Itumbi. He always likes poking and knows in everything I said. But, you know, he's my friend. But he had to tweet it anyway, so I don't take offense in that. But anyway, that's democracy, and that's the kind of democracy that we want. And one thing that we forget, even Dennis Itumbi has never mentioned, the MP for our deputy president, the member of parliament for Tarbo, where the deputy president was born and purportedly sold chicken, is not a member of Jubilee, which the deputy president belongs. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the things that we should be talking about.
But I think, Mark, I think two things that I would like to talk about that. Number one, I agree with Philip here that Siaya County, as it is, has always produced candidates or members of parliament who are opposed to the party that Raila actually is leading at that particular time. Yes. And the entire Luo Nyanza, actually, if you look at the history from 1997, when Raila actually was an NDP and up to today, you'll realize that at any given term, there have always been MPs who have been elected on different political parties. Mm-hmm. But having said that, I think ODM also needs some fresh thinking so that they do not blame the media for whatever is happening with the party. Because if you look at all those headlines are actually crafted based on what ODM leaders said. For example, if you say that Raila has been embarrassed, Raila himself went there and told the voters that please don't embarrass me when they are voting. So definitely, the media actually is just going by what they said. If they are talking about the Hustler Nation and what Ruto said, Orengo's infamous statement about going to impeach Ruto, actually the statement was made during the Ugenya by-election campaigns. And when Orengo was campaigning there, he said that Ochieng is a mole and therefore these are people who are being supported by Ruto and corruption, and the corruption proceeds. So that it means that Orengo was portraying Ochieng as a Ruto candidate. So that means... He has confirmed exactly. So whether it has been confirmed or not, but we're just following what, at that particular time, what Orengo said. So if Ochieng wins, then definitely, according to Orengo, Ochieng was Ruto's candidate. Right. So actually the media is just following what these other guys have been saying during their own campaign. These headlines are not crafted outside what actually was the campaign agenda, because the campaign agenda was Ruto versus Raila. So if it turns out to be that, then the media actually goes by what these people had said.
Eric, you know, if the DP's tweet on Saturday is anything to go by, when you were saying the Hustler Nation has, I don't know, done what, wacha Mungu aitwe Mungu. You see, that confirms it all, that he had a hand in, perhaps he supported this, but the Honorable Cheng financially, or I doubt if it was morally, but it was financially. Because, you know, there's no way DP can support you morally. He only supports you with money because he has a lot to dish out. So he confirmed it in his tweet that these candidates were his. But something that's appalling is that if you listen to like, you know, whenever Al-Shabaab commits or rather terrorist attack happens anywhere, Al-Shabaab claims responsibility. So he claimed responsibility for the victories in Ugenya and Embakasi South. But yesterday I was surprised when the former vice president said the DP should stop taking credit for the Embakasi South seat. So I wonder why? Why is there this hula baloo over this particular victory? Everyone wants to claim credit for.
But you see right now, when the battle goes to parliament, and I think this could be the reason why even president sometimes finds his hands tied, because if you go to parliament, if you take agenda to parliament, yes, it means that you must also marshal numbers there. So anybody who has numbers in parliament will always call the shots. So if these MPs have not in parliament and they are going now to join the Ruto's axis, it's good for him, because if you want to take anything to parliament, that it means that if it is true that David and Mawade are Ruto's MPs now, that means that Ruto already has more members of parliament to begin. Yes. So if you want to take anything into parliament, you know the Hustler Nation has already added 2 members of parliament. So that is upon ODM itself.
And he has made allegations of him having resources to sway people one way or another.
I'm glad that Etale concedes.
That's the word to use.
That this was a serious loss for ODM in terms of the Ruto-Raila fight. Yes. And and obviously, of course, Ruto will want to claim credit for it. That cannot be blamed on the media. Yeah. And I would not be surprised if Ruto also starts claiming credit for Gor Mahia losing on Sunday.
I saw his cronies.
Yeah, some of them are already claiming credit. But that's the nature of our
politics.
Our politics.
Yes.
The one thing really we need to interrogate even further now going forward is, fine, that was one battle, but there's a war ahead. There are some Ruto guys I know who are going into overdrive with excitement that these 2 by-elections show that Ruto will win in 2022. Okay. Is that something then we can now use this to interrogate further? Because, or is that just premature celebrations?
Because we know how things change even in a month's time. In
politics is very fluid, yes, very dynamic thing.
It's very early
I think Embakasi South and Ugenya also have their own dynamics.
Yes.
That maybe even without that Ruto-Raila angle, the results could still have gone the same way.
Okay.
But there's a possibility. They have their own dynamics.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll say this, and I agree with what Senior is saying, is that they have their own dynamics. Because I come from Siaya County, my mother is in Ugenya and votes in Ugenya. So I have got some information about that. So it might not totally to be that it was Ruto's influence that could have helped Ochieng. But here we are talking about 2 candidates. We've got a candidate who had worked there for 5 years, that is Ochieng. Then we've got the next candidate, who is Karan, who has actually been there for two years.
1 year.
Yeah, 1 year or 2 years. So you can compare and see that the Ugenya people were given a second chance to choose. Yes. Are you sure you want to dump Ochieng and go with Karan, or are you sure you want to dump Karan and go back for Ochieng? So Ugenya people actually had a very, their work was well cut out to make the decision whether they want to continue with Ochieng based on what Ochieng had done as a member of parliament. Right. Then they look at Karan. What has Karan done for even for 1 year, if we had to go over that? For 1 year he has been in office. What did he do? So it was very easy for people of Ugenya to make that decision, with or without external influence.
I think if you look at many elections in the recent past, ODM has this tendency of giving direct tickets to people it favors, rather than doing a poll to find out who are actually the most popular candidates.
Find the pulse on the ground.
That had a big impact even in the 2017 elections and some other previous elections, where ODM gives a party to a person it presumes is the, I don't know, is the one favored, I don't know by who. and then the electorate
Take a
will
while,
often,
yes.
I think this
will often reject that candidate. So it becomes a lot for
This is
ODM.
too harsh on my part.
Real quick, okay, you have
I
right to
vividly
reply.
remember very well during the nominations to in the run-up to the last general election or every other general election, we've been subjecting everybody and everyone to a nomination, save for particular constituencies where people don't show interest.
Save for particular.
Yes.
Where people don't show interest in vying for a particular seat. But
shortage of people who show interest.
But you can show that in the party strongholds,
99%.
there is a lot of interest.
No, in Nyanza.
And there have been direct nominations.
No, not at all. During the general election, everybody, and you'll be surprised to see the kind of applications that come to Orange House, to the National Elections Board, people wanting to vie for a particular seat, especially in our strongholds, and they come in droves. They present their applications, and they're subjected. They pay, and they're subjected to a nomination.
And that is why there's a question of the direct handing of the ticket.
Perhaps
after that process.
During by-elections, like in isolated cases where someone goes to court to spends his or her money in a petition, then he or she wins that petition.
Yes.
So what do you do with this particular person? But you allow him to go and seek for that
But
seat.
Mark, look at it. Just be specific. Look
But
at this
that is
particular
going
case.
to be sorted out.
Look at
because
this
there's a report.
Look at this.
Oh, so that's a
case.
problem you're sorting out.
There's a report.
You're talking about sorting out, so he sorted out.
But Mark,
There's
look
a
at
report
it
that
easy.
will soon come out to the public.
Okay.
After the task force went around the country collecting views from party members on what best we can do to improve on this particular issue of nomination.
But Mark, on this specific case of
Real quick.
Ugenya by-election, here is a candidate who was hosted by Orengo in his house, I think, on Saturday. Then they left Orengo's home, went to a funeral. Then he was announced that this is going to be your candidate. You know,
When was that?
Yeah, when Karan was being declared the candidate for Ugenya, actually Orengo announced it there from in a
But
funeral.
wasn't he the person who had just lost that particular
Exactly.
seat
So that
in a
means
petition?
That should have been appointed.
that should have pointed that actually this guy is
And perhaps that was not announced in that funeral. It's the prerogative of the National Election Board to decide.
But you say these
and
are
it's in our constitution, the
yes,
party constitution.
but you're saying that some of the things that you're looking to sort out as you re-strategize. So we'll wait for that report that you say will come in.
It will come out soon.
First, of course, to your
and
party
we'll make
members
it public
and then
to our
make it
members
public.
and the media too.
All right, all right.
So
Eston Kimaswatch.
They should not blame the media. That's what I wanted.
Yes.
No, nobody has
Blame
blamed
the
the
strategy.
media.
Yes.
Nobody has
On
blamed
the
the
results.
media, but the media
Okay.
should be responsible in what they write. And by the way, I will also share in the words of the Deputy President, if such headlines can continue coming, then when you have those dividends, please remember us as a party.
So, you're borrowing something from
Yeah,
your
it is.
president.
So
All right.
when you give us this,
The Vice President, the Deputy President is role model.
kind of...
You'll check with our board. You'll check with our board on that. And this is
That's
something
the
that's
right
actually
time.
somewhat. Yeah, I know. Something related to what you brought up, Eston Kimaswatch. You say what you've conveniently failed to mention is that media ownership determines the kind of media headline one gets.
Exactly.
Can you say standard media can have a positive headline on William Samoei Ruto? I'll leave it there. And you brought it up there in terms of William Ruto having some ownership in some media house. He perhaps should go for dividends there. So, few seconds, and I need to bring in Pastor Nganga. Not in studio.
Yeah, of course, there are instances where media ownership can influence editorial direction or editorial policy, and where it is not a clearly defined written editorial policy and guidelines, it is simply playing up to the whims of the owner or the directors. That creates problems.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, the loser becomes that media house, because where there is slants and there is bias, the public will see it. This fellow has mentioned the Standard Group. And obviously he's mentioned the Standard Group because it is known to be associated with the Moi family. And so it is probably very partial towards Gideon Moi. But if where Ruto has a big support base, the Standard might lose out in sales.
Yes.
As simple as that. So you do have to also measure it against some practicalities.
Can play against
that if you just use a media house to play your own politics, then you might as well give it away as a free sheet.
All right. Let's bring in Pastor Nganga. Controversial televangelist James Nganga of the Neno Evangelism Center is at it again. Last week, he hit out at the media for what he called exaggeration about what he faces as an accused person. Nganga is accused of defrauding a businessman, Wixon Joroge, of 3.6 million shillings, and he's actually challenging this particular case because he says it's causing him grievous harm. Nganga, however, failed to turn up in court this past Friday. A few weeks ago, a similar online rant, in fact, this was 2 weeks ago, and threat against citizen journalist Linus Kaikai landed him in court, where he was charged with threatening to kill Kaikai. This is part of the latest edition of Why Nganga, Why Nganga.
Nimerudi tena. Ningetaka kujua ni utamu gani mnasikia nyinyi watu wa media kutaja jina la Nganga. Mnasikia utamu gani? What do you want after Nganga? Kila mtu akiamuka ni biusi ni Nganga. Nganga yuko jela, Nganga amefanya hii, amefanya hii. Mnasikia utamu gani? Jina la Nganga. Basi nitawapatia hiyo Nganga kama mnaitaka. Wewe unadanganya wa Kenya niko jela. Juzi umesema nimeenda kujifungia msituni. Nikiombea nini? Niombea hiyo mambo ya ujinga hiyo mko nayo. Sasa unadanganya wa Kenya ati Nganga ameiba milioni 5, Nganga yuko amefungwa. Wewe chunga akili yako. Chunga akili yako. Chunga akili kama hutachunga, I promise you the same again. Na ningetaka nao serikali ya Kenya iangalie why Nganga, why Nganga, why Nganga, why Nganga. Ningetaka wale mko kwa mamlaka, why Nganga, why Nganga, why? Kila mtu akitaka kujifundisha kuongea Kisungu ni Nganga. My news, my kicker tonight is Nganga. Everybody want to kicker tonight. Kicker yourself. Rubbish. In Jesus' name, I rebuke you.
Well, I don't know if rubbish really should follow in Jesus' name, but hey, that's Pastor Nganga talking. And I want to bring it to you first as the Kenya Union of Journalists Secretary General. You spoke initially when there was that first threat against Linus Kaikai. Does this to you come off as a threat? Is it concerning?
Obviously, it's a threat, only that he's not coming out very straight to say what he's going to do, just like the first one, whereby he was actually taken to court over the remarks. But like we said in our statement, when we issued our statement, we said that even when Jesus made the triumphant entry into Jerusalem, he found when the temple had been turned into a business premises where people were conning others. So definitely that will also happen when the judgment day will come for people like Nganga, who have turned the word of God into a money-minting business and also to con Kenyans. That's what we said in our press statement, and we still stand by that, that nothing stops the media as the fourth estate to hold church leaders to account for whatever they are doing, because they are also serving the society, and the media also serve the society. So whatever we do for the common good of the society. And therefore, if we believe that as the fourth estate, there is something that we need to do as a watchdog, especially what is been happening among the religious leaders, then we have a duty to hold these religious leaders to account.
All right. Every time, even when we mention Prophet or war, bring up questions, there is thunder and lightning online that reaches us.
One thing I'll say to the media, give this gentleman total blackout. He deserves not a single breath on national television, radio, or even a filler on any newspaper. Because I believe the more attention you give him, the more he becomes rogue. Like whatever he's saying here is just roguish. You know, even Jesus Christ himself would not be that rogue. Even when he went to scatter people who were doing business in the house of the Lord, he was not using unpalatable words. So people who want to make a name using the name of God, or rather making money in the name of God, like that song, the reggae song, stealing in the name of the Lord. These are the kind of people. Sorry, I hope he will not come for me, but I've just said it. You see someone, a man of God with bling-blings all over his fingers, you know, a lot of stuff on his fingers, whatever. I mean, That's not the kind of teachings we were taught when we were going to Sunday school.
Right.
So Pastor Nganga and every other person, perhaps, you know, you talked about Prophet Owor. Every time something is said about him, you'll see his social media warriors. But the way he has a huge following, so he has a lot of, so many people who can start a hashtag on social media and it trends, it becomes #1. And it goes viral and viral.
It's not true. It's not true. Some of them use bots. Huh?
Yes. I know, but it's about perception.
So that it is seen as if it is a
big conversation. Yes.
Social media is about perception. You know, as a social media person, I believe even social media guys should stop talking about this. The bloggers, let's not give them too much airtime, these people. So the moment you take your camera to Pastor Nganga, he will say anything. Because, you know, people who have little education can harm you, by the way, with anything they say, because they will not be held responsible for what they say.
You brought up the education thing
Yes.
again. Macharia, you were listening keenly to him. He has followers, by the way. When he says give him a blackout, is this someone we can really ignore?
Ordinarily, I would not advocate giving anybody a blackout.
Yes.
But we do have to be judicious in terms of how we cover everybody. Now, for a fellow like that one, I would be tempted to say every market has its madman. But we can take this conversation further. Turn on your TV set on Sunday morning. It could be NTV or KTN, or Citizen, or any of the other Ebro.
Yes.
And the whole place is these sort of characters who have bought time to preach on TV. Whether it is Prophet Owor or Nganga or the Glory Be, whatever, or the man and wife who was the socialite man and wife, I don't know what they're called, Kunas and Kunas, those characters.
Yes.
They buy space. And we must ask ourselves, to what extent are we taking money and then contributing to the creation of these demigods, these frauds, these cons? If we take money as NTV to cover Prophet Owor live, and he claims to have cured somebody of cancer or arthritis or even death.
Even if we put the disclaimer, these views are not...
But will we go beyond that and investigate that case and try and determine, was this person actually paralyzed or blind or dead? We saw this ridiculous case in South Africa the other day of some character who claimed to have been brought back from the dead.
Right.
Look out.
How many guys are being brought back from the dead by our Ngangas and Owors and everybody else? Do we follow up to determine whether that is a fraud? That is what we should be doing before taking their money to air them live.
Right. On the issue of literary education, I was just quoting Pastor Nganga himself. Okay. In one of the videos, he said, "I've not gone to school like you people have," in reference to our colleague from the other side. He said, "Sisi ambao gender shule, tutakuwa na haki wapi?" You know. So I'm trying to say, I was just quoting him. Yes. So nobody should lynch me for saying that.
Okay, it's not a swipe at people who haven't quite enjoyed education. And speaking, and we're wrapping up, there's that issue of the money that we accept. There's a function that we, as KUJ and the Editors Guild especially, that we pulled out of. Tell us the story about that and what informed that decision, an award ceremony.
Yes, I think this was the media awards that were being organized by companies in the energy sector. I think that's Kenya Pipeline, KenGen, Kenya Power, Geothermal Development Authority, National Oil Corporation. Those companies that are within the energy sector, they usually have these awards. And this year they invited me, they invited me to go with 10 members of KUJ so that we can grace the gala night where they are going to give the awards to journalists. And first of all, we made that decision based on the following reasons. Reason number one, we were not part of the process from the beginning, and therefore we were not sure of the integrity of those awards.
Okay.
So we felt like we were being invited last minute to go and legitimize the process.
Okay.
Then number two, journalists hold the leadership of these companies and these companies to account. And if you look at what they were trying to do, they were trying to bribe journalists through the back door. Because if you are people being reported about, you are the people who are organizing awards, you are the people who are financing them, you are the people who actually identify the judges, because as of the day we are going there, we are not even sure who are the judges, if the judges were the CEOs of these companies or employees of these companies who are actually the judging panel who are going to award them. Then number three, these companies, actually most of them, the entire leadership of these companies are people who are acting. And they're acting because their bosses have been either been sacked or sent on compulsory leave as a result of corruption allegations.
Yes.
So definitely we are going to preside over companies that actually are struggling with corruption. And the corruption is a major problem we are having in this country. So participating in that process, definitely we are going to dance with the companies who are being accused of corruption. And the media, we've got a responsibility to ensure that we hold these people to account. So in other words, what we are saying, we need a credible process. We need credible media awards that actually people who are spearheading those awards have no interest at all. But these companies who are being, who are supposing, they have interest. Okay. Because these stories that they are going to award must have been stories about these companies or about this sector. So definitely the people who are giving these awards, already they have interest. So that was conflict of interest. Okay. So participating in that, definitely we are going to endorse conflict of interest.
All right. And it brings a question of how far do we go then in,
That's what I was going to come to, because I think Eric has explained clearly what the conversation they had within KUJ, and very much the kind of conversation within the Kenya Editors Guild. And personally, I asked myself, if I look at all the headlines in the past year on stories from the energy sector, it is about corruption. Will those stories about corruption merit to be awarded in awards funded by the same energy sector?
Yes.
Absolutely not. But now we have raised the bar. And I think beyond energy, any other media awards which are sponsored by an interested party, which might be more interested in the PR or the whitewash, whether it is telecommunications,
the NGO world,
or the agriculture or pharmaceuticals, we must, as journalists who want to remain independent, keep off. Okay. We even need to rethink now. We have the media awards, which we normally have.
Media Council?
Yes. Under the Media Council. Many of those categories are sponsored by what you might call interested parties. We must now relook that formula.
All right. So
because if we are going to reject the energy industry interested
based
parties,
on integrity,
we must reject every other corporates who might be wanting to sponsor awards so that they can whitewash themselves.
That opens a conversation to so many other levels that I can't get into. But Philip, really quick, your last word on the conversation that we've had tonight.
Well, I just want to appeal to our media, because, the media is the watchdog of the society, and it informs the society on the happenings. Perhaps tomorrow, to break from the tradition of giving people headlines, undue headlines, and talk about this lady who gave birth to 5 bouncing babies, and unfortunately she lost her life on yesterday, Madam Evelyn Namhula. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about maternal
and we are
health
talking
care.
about it.
Let's give it some good prominence in the media so that people can learn about the problems mothers go through before and after giving birth.
Okay.
Those are some of the things that we should be talking about. If you have journalists that specialize in health matters, give them that space to educate women, to educate mothers and the mothers-to-be about the dangers they face during.
But it's good to also talk about corruption, if corruption is what is ridding people of getting the services on the ground, from protecting them from things that can be prevented. So I believe...
But I want to correct Philip that actually today one of the stories that I read that were on page 1 of the daily newspapers, actually that was the Daily Nation, actually was about Evelyn. Actually Evelyn was on page 1 with a picture.
Yes.
So that means that the media actually treated this story with a lot of seriousness, because we know this is a major issue that has to be discussed and has to be provoked a debate by putting that story on page 1. But what we can say is that probably the media should continue digging into this story so that every part or every aspect of this story is told. Then also, having said that, my closing remark would be that whenever I see politicians complaining about the media, it confirms that the media are doing a good job. So if you see Deputy President complaining, to the President complaining, it means that the media is actually, they are trying as much, it could not be the level of expectations of the society, but at least it means that the media actually is doing some good job. But when I hear, like last time when I heard, right now is a PS, Marwa, in Mombasa, saying that during last election they did, the media in Mombasa did a very good job because they were able to work with them. And I'm worried.
That was good. Yes. Real quick, Macharia, and then to the international.
When Uhuru and Raila and Ruto concur, they are all blaming the media. We must be doing something right. As simple as that.
Well put, and a good place to end it at.
And to fellow Kenyans,
the last word was Masharia's.
Let's think positive, and let's be doers of great deeds and thinkers of great thoughts. Good night.
All right. If you're trying to impress us with that quote at the end, thank you. Thank you, Philip Vitale, for your time. Thank you very much, Eric Odwor, for your time as well, representing KUJ, and Macharia Gaido for your contribution to this. I'll leave you with the international radar. And this is actually a story that should concern all of us in the profession, because it is touching one of us, one of our own colleagues, but in the region. This is International Radar. The Committee to Protect Journalists on 4th of April launched a campaign to bringing back Azori Gwanda, a freelance journalist working in rural Tanzania, dubbed Where is Azori? A day to 500 days. This before 500 days struck since he went missing. Azori Gwanda went missing on November 21st, 2017 in Tanzania's Coast region. According to Azori's wife, Anna Pinoni, he came to their farm in Kibiti with 4 men she did not recognize in a white Land Cruiser. He called to her from the vehicle's window, told her he was taking an emergency trip and would be back in a day, and asked her for the keys to their home. Later that evening, she saw signs that their home had been searched. Before his disappearance, Azori had been investigating cases of mysterious killings in his community. A June 2017 report from The Citizen indicated that 39 people had been killed over 2 years. The attacks were mainly targeted at police officers and government officials, according to the newspaper's report. The Tanzanian government has failed to launch a credible investigation into his fate, and on occasion has even dismissed his case offhand. In Tanzania, journalists and media outlets are wary of retaliation if they are too vocal about Gwanda's case. Now, when 2 CPJ representatives, Angela Quintal and Muroki Momo, were detained overnight and interrogated in Tanzania last year, and asked why they were specifically asked why they were interested in this particular story. His disappearance comes amid declining press freedom in the country, including government-ordered media shutdowns, fines, restrictive regulations, and arbitrary arrest of journalists. The 2 journalists had traveled to Tanzania to understand the challenges facing the Tanzanian press and to inform the global public. The campaign intends to raise awareness about Gwanda and will call on Tanzanian authorities to carry out a credible investigation and publicly account for his fate. Supporters can participate by sharing the hashtags #WhereIsAzori and Mrudisheni Azori on social media, and we will support this particular campaign here on Press Pass, as I'm sure my panelists would. This is a very concerning event that has taken place, and it's not the first in Tanzania. quite disappointing. And yes, we hope for the best for Zori and his family. Thank you for watching. We're a bit over our time, but I'm sure you think and you feel it was worth your while. Have a good night. My name is Mark Masai.